Listen carefully. You are sitting here waiting for some grand rescue, some hero to come and untangle the knots of your life. But the truth, raw and unforgiving, is this: no one is coming to save you. This is not a threat, not a doom prophecy, but the ultimate freedom you can grasp. You must understand, waiting for an external savior is the very root of suffering. It is a trap of the mind, a refusal to face the reality that you alone carry your life's weight. There is no magic wand, no fairy godmother, no cosmic emergency team coming down to fix your brokenness. This realization can either crush you or liberate you. When you stop looking outward for salvation, a profound shift happens. The burden becomes your strength. Your life, with all its chaos, failures and pain, becomes a temple of growth. The wounds you thought would destroy you become the doors to deeper understanding. But this path is not for the faint-hearted. It demands courage to stand alone in your own darkness and not run away. We have created a world that promotes dependency on governments, on technologies, on others' validation, thinking that somehow these will rescue us. But these are mere illusions. When the real test comes, when the storm rages inside you, no one will hold your hand unless you reach out first, not to others but to yourself. So wake up. The savior you seek is not outside, it is the very essence of your being. The moment you accept this, you stop being a victim of life's circumstances and become the master of your destiny. You realize that the power to change, to heal, to rise has always been within you, waiting silently, patiently. No one is coming to save you. And that paradoxically is the greatest gift you can receive. Because now you are truly free, free to live, to struggle, learn and ultimately to transcend. The question is, will you take this gift or will you keep waiting in vain? Self-responsibility is the foundation upon which every meaningful life stands. To understand this, one must first acknowledge that life does not come with guarantees or external saviors. When difficulties arise, and they inevitably will, it is not the world's duty to solve your problems. This understanding is not meant to isolate you, but to awaken you to the truth that your existence is in your hands alone. Every choice you make, every action you take shapes your reality. And to deny this is to deny your very power. Many people live in the illusion that someone else will come and fix what is broken inside them. They look to others to give meaning, purpose and direction, hoping that external forces will lift them from their struggles. But life does not work this way. When you wait for rescue from outside, you hand over your power and become a passive observer of fate. True freedom begins the moment you stop waiting and start owning the responsibility of your life. Responsibility is not a burden, it is a sacred opportunity. It asks you to be conscious of your thoughts, emotions and actions without blaming the circumstances or others. When you claim responsibility, you stop being a victim of your past and stop blaming your upbringing, your environment or your relationships. You look squarely at where you are, accept it fully and decide to move forward with awareness and courage. This is where transformation begins, because no change is possible without honest ownership. Taking responsibility means embracing your mistakes and failures without excuses. It means recognizing that every failure is a lesson and every mistake is a step toward growth. When you refuse to blame others or circumstances, you free yourself from the chains of resentment and helplessness. Instead of being crushed by your errors, you learn from them, refine your understanding and develop the resilience to keep moving forward. This kind of resilience is not built by waiting for others to intervene, but by standing firm in your own truth. Self-responsibility also demands that you are accountable not only to yourself but to life itself. It means living in such a way that your actions are aligned with your values and your highest understanding. When you're responsible, you do not act out of fear or convenience, but from a place of clarity and integrity. You recognize that your actions ripple out into the world, affecting not just yourself but everyone around you. This awareness brings a depth to living that transcends superficial concerns and service. This path of responsibility is not easy because it requires inner work that many avoid. It asks you to confront your fears, your limitations and the parts of yourself you would rather ignore. But within this confrontation lies immense power. When you meet your challenges with openness and courage, you break free from the cycle of blame and helplessness. You become the creator of your life story, not a mere character tossed about by circumstances. It is important to remember that self-responsibility is not about isolation or rejecting help. It is about knowing that help, guidance and support are only valuable when you are willing to stand on your own feet. When you depend entirely on others for your survival or happiness, you give away your sovereignty. But when you take responsibility first, you can engage with the world from a place of strength, not neediness, and then any support you receive becomes a true enrichment. Ultimately, embracing self-responsibility leads to a life lived with awareness, freedom and fulfillment. It means you're the one steering your ship through storms and calm seas alike. No one else can do this for you, and no one else has the power to shape your inner landscape. This realization may be daunting at first, but it also opens the door to the greatest liberation you'll ever know. And so the journey begins, a journey where you become the guardian of your own destiny. Inner strength is the silent force that carries you through the darkest moments when everything outside seems to collapse and no help appears on the horizon. It is not something born from external circumstances, but something cultivated deeply within, untouched by the chaos surrounding you, existing as a steady flame that refuses to be extinguished. This strength does not roar or demand attention, it simply persists quietly, offering resilience when you have nothing left to give and courage when fear threatens to consume you. It is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to remain centered and grounded amidst struggle, knowing that the storm will pass and that you have the power to endure beyond it. Many mistake inner strength for brute force or sheer willpower, but it is far more subtle and profound. It is the stillness in your heart that refuses to be broken, the clarity in your mind that chooses peace over panic, and the deep acceptance that life unfolds as it must. Regardless of your desires, this strength grows only when you stop resisting reality and begin embracing your experience fully, without denial or avoidance. It is born in the soil of hardship, watered by tears and nourished by the willingness to face pain without flinching. Without this acceptance, strength remains fragile, dependent on comfort and ease. But with it, strength becomes an unshakable foundation. To cultivate inner strength, one must turn inward and develop a relationship with themselves that is rooted in honesty and compassion. It means recognizing your vulnerabilities without shame and meeting your fears without running away. When you acknowledge your wounds and allow them to be seen, you stop giving your energy to hiding and start redirecting it toward healing. This process is not always comfortable because it asks you to confront your shadow and to move beyond the protective walls built to keep pain at bay. But through this confrontation, inner strength grows stronger, like steel forged in fire, flexible yet unbreakable. Inner strength is not a solitary journey either. It is intimately connected with the capacity to remain connected with life even when it seems overwhelming or unfair. It allows you to maintain your humanity without losing yourself in despair or bitterness. This strength encourages you to keep your heart open when the world tempts you to shut it down, to keep your mind clear when confusion swells all around. It is the quiet voice that reminds you that while you cannot control everything outside, you can always control how you respond. This choice, made again and again, builds a reservoir of power that no circumstance can drain. Often we look outside for validation and support to feel strong. But true inner strength does not depend on approval or encouragement. It is not something to be shown off or boasted about. It is a deeply personal, often private experience of standing firm when no one is watching. When you rely on others to prop you up, your strength becomes conditional and unstable. But when you cultivate it from within, it becomes a spring that flows endlessly, sustaining you through every trial. This self-reliance is not arrogance but a profound humility, knowing that the most important ally you have in life is your own steady presence. The development of inner strength also demands patience and persistence because it is not built overnight or through grand gestures. It grows in the everyday moments of choosing to breathe through discomfort, to remain calm in tension, and to keep moving forward even when the path is unclear. Each small act of endurance, each moment of mindful presence adds layers to this strength until it becomes your default way of being. And while life will continue to test you, these tests will no longer break you but will instead reveal new depths of your resilience and capacity to transform. Inner strength is a kind of sacred rebellion against despair, a refusal to surrender to the weight of suffering. It is the voice inside that says, I will continue, even when the body is tired and the mind wants to give up. This strength does not promise you a life without pain or difficulty, but it guarantees that you will never be defeated by them. It teaches you to find power in vulnerability, to discover courage in fear, and to embrace the fullness of life without retreating into numbness or denial. It is a beacon that shines not because it is free of darkness, but because it knows how to burn through it. Ultimately, inner strength is your birthright, the unspoken essence of who you are beyond all the roles, titles and identities. It is the source from which all growth, healing and transformation emerge. When you tap into this strength, you realize that no matter what happens outside, there is a place inside you that is untouched, unshaken and eternal. This realization does not arrive as a sudden epiphany but unfolds gradually as you walk the path of self-discovery, learning that the power to face life's challenges has always been within you for you to claim it for yourself. Awareness is the first gentle step toward awakening, a subtle turning of the gaze inward to see life as it truly is rather than as you wish it to be. And this seeing is not merely intellectual, but a deep sensing of existence without judgment or distraction. Most people live in a fog, caught up in their habitual thoughts and emotions, replaying stories that keep them asleep, unaware that this slumber is self-imposed. Awakening begins when you pierce through this fog and recognize the patterns that bind you, the illusions that keep you imprisoned in a world of suffering and confusion. This moment of seeing clearly is not a distant goal, but something accessible in the very now, the very breath you take. When awareness grows, you start to realize that you are not your thoughts or emotions, but the space in which they arise and dissolve. This understanding creates a distance between you and the turbulence of the mind, allowing you to observe without being swept away. Awakening is the gradual realization that the self you have identified with your ego, your story, your fears, is a construct, not the ultimate reality. This does not mean you reject these parts of yourself, but that you see them as transient waves on the vast ocean of consciousness, neither good nor bad, simply passing phenomena. The process of awakening is not comfortable or easy because it demands honesty and the willingness to confront the unknown within yourself. It asks you to question everything you have taken for granted, to let go of old beliefs and attachments that have defined your identity. This can create a sense of disorientation and loss, but it is also the doorway to profound freedom. In awakening, you stop seeking fulfillment outside because you discover a wellspring of peace and clarity inside that no external condition can touch or diminish. Awareness and awakening are not one-time events but ongoing processes, like a flame that must be continuously fed and protected. Each moment offers a chance to choose presence over distraction, clarity over confusion and love over… When you cultivate this constant vigilance, you begin to live life with greater intensity and depth, fully engaged with what is rather than what you hope it might be. This presence transforms even the most mundane experiences into opportunities for insight and growth, turning life itself into a teacher and guide. There is a great illusion in believing that awakening will remove all pain or difficulty from your life. But in truth, it deepens your capacity to face whatever arises without being overwhelmed. Awareness sharpens your senses and strengthens your heart, enabling you to meet suffering with compassion and equanimity. This does not mean you become indifferent or numb. Rather, you develop a profound empathy bond from the recognition that pain is part of the shared human experience. Awakening makes you more alive, more connected and more capable of responding wisely and lovingly. In a world that encourages distraction and numbness, awakening is an act of rebellion and courage. It requires you to break free from the endless cycles of consumerism, entertainment and superficial connection that dull your senses and fragment your attention. True awakening calls you to stand firmly in the present moment, fully aware of your inner landscape and your relationship. Awareness and awakening open the door to a deeper understanding of your interconnectedness with all life. When you awaken, you begin to see that your individual existence is woven into a vast, intricate web of relationships and energies, and this insight nurtures a sense of responsibility and care. It dissolves the illusion of separateness and invites you to live with greater humility and grace. In this awakened state, your actions carry more weight and meaning because they arise from a place of deep connection and conscious intention. Ultimately, awakening is a journey without a final destination because it is not about reaching some perfect state but about continuously expanding your capacity to be present, to see clearly and to love deeply. Each moment of awareness is a step on this path and the path itself is the goal. To awaken is to live fully awake in a world that often sleeps, to embrace the mystery of existence with an open heart, and to realize that this journey of seeing and being seen is the most profound adventure you will ever undertake. The illusion of dependence is one of the most subtle traps the mind creates, convincing you that your survival, happiness and identity rely on forces outside yourself, and this belief quietly steals your freedom without you even noticing. From early on, you are taught to look outward for validation, security and solutions, And slowly you build a fortress of reliance on people, systems and circumstances that you believe will protect you from the uncertainties of life. But the more you depend on these external things, the more fragile your sense of self becomes. Because these things are always shifting, unpredictable, and beyond your ultimate control. This creates a deep vulnerability masked as safety, an endless seeking that never truly satisfies. Dependence feels like comfort at first, because it promises relief from responsibility and the burden of choice, but in reality, it is a form of bondage. When you rely on others to define who you are or to fix what is broken inside, you give away your power and become a prisoner of their actions and decisions. This external reliance dulls your capacity to trust yourself, to listen to your own wisdom, and to face life's challenges with your own strength. It is as if you have handed over the keys to your life and are waiting anxiously for someone else to unlock the doors and lead you forward. The illusion deepens in a world filled with distractions designed to keep you dependent. From consumer culture promising happiness through things, to social structures encouraging conformity and obedience. These forces cultivate a mindset where true independence and self-awareness are seen as threats and dependence is normalized as the safe default. People cling to their attachments, whether to material possessions, relationships or ideologies, mistaking these for security. But these attachments are like sandcastles built on shifting shores, always vulnerable to collapse when tides of change inevitably come. Breaking free from this illusion requires a radical shift in perspective, a willingness to question everything you have accepted as necessary for your well-being. It asks you to look inward and recognize that true stability and fulfillment cannot come from outside, but must arise from within. This means cultivating the courage to stand alone, to face the unknown without crutches, and to discover that your essence is not defined by what you have or who you know, but by your own presence and awareness. This realization can be frightening because it strips away familiar supports, but it also reveals an unshakable foundation beneath the surface. When you begin to disentangle yourself from dependence, you start to see how much suffering arises from the gap between what you want others to be or do and what they actually are. You stop trying to control people or circumstances to feel safe and instead cultivate an inner sanctuary that cannot be disturbed by external chaos. This is not about isolation or rejecting connection, but about engaging with life from a place of freedom and choice rather than neediness and fear. It is the difference between loving without clinging and living without constant anxiety about losing what you depend on. The process of releasing dependence is ongoing and requires patience because old habits and fears cling tightly, whispering that you cannot survive on your own. But with every small step towards self-reliance, you gain clarity and confidence, and the world begins to look less like a threat and more like a field of opportunity. You learn to navigate relationships and challenges with a sense of inner wholeness rather than emptiness, and this changes how you move through life, no longer as someone who needs saving, but as someone who can stand strong in their own light. It is important to understand that dependence is not inherently wrong or evil. It is a natural human tendency to seek connection and support, but it becomes an illusion when it blinds you to your own agency and power. True connection arises when both parties come from a place of completeness rather than neediness, and when support is a gift freely given and received without attachment. When you see dependence for what it truly is, you become more discerning about the relationships and systems that you engage with, choosing those that nurture growth rather than those that foster weakness. Ultimately, dissolving the illusion of dependence opens the door to authentic freedom and self-mastery. It allows you to move through life with grace and resilience, no longer shaken by every change or challenge because you have found your center. This freedom is not separation from the world, but a deep integration with it, where you participate fully and responsibly, while maintaining the awareness that your peace and strength come from within. This awakening to your own power is the greatest revolution you can experience, and it transforms everything you touch and become part of. Empowerment through acceptance is a profound realization that true power does not come from resisting what is, but from embracing it fully without judgment or denial. And this embracing opens the door to transformation rather than defeat. Most people spend their lives fighting reality, the circumstances, the feelings, the limitations, as if resistance will somehow change the unchangeable. But this struggle only deepens suffering and keeps them trapped in cycles of frustration and pain. Acceptance, on the other hand, is not passive resignation or giving up. It is a courageous facing of things exactly as they are, with eyes wide open and heart steady. When you accept your present moment, including all its imperfections and difficulties. You stop wasting precious energy on denial and battle, and instead you begin to channel your strength toward understanding and wise action. Acceptance clears the fog of illusion that clouds your judgment and reveals the true nature of your situation. It allows you to see what can be changed, what must be endured, and what is simply part of the larger flow of life. This clarity is the foundation of empowerment because without knowing the truth of where you stand, any effort toward change is blind and ineffective. Acceptance is also a deeply healing act because it frees you from the resistance that causes inner turmoil. When you refuse to accept pain, loss or disappointment, you create internal conflict. And this conflict manifests as anxiety, anger or despair. But when you embrace these experiences as part of your journey, you bring peace to the mind and soothe the heart. This peace is not complacency but a dynamic presence that allows you to respond to life's challenges with calmness and grace. Empowerment arises in this space of calm, where you are no longer ruled by reactivity but guided by conscious choice. To truly embody empowerment through acceptance, you must also accept yourself, your flaws, mistakes and vulnerabilities. Without judgment or self-condemnation, this self-acceptance is often the hardest step because society conditions us to believe that worthiness depends on perfection and achievement. But real empowerment comes from embracing your humanity fully, recognizing that your imperfections are not weaknesses but gateways to deeper wisdom and compassion. When you accept yourself as you are, you stop fighting an internal war and begin to cultivate an inner reliance that strengthens you from within. Acceptance expands beyond the personal to encompass your relationships and environment as well. It invites you to engage with others without trying to control or change them, to meet them where they are with empathy rather than restraint. This creates space for authentic connection and understanding, transforming conflict into cooperation and separation into unity. When you accept the world as it is, without clinging to how you think it should be, you gain a powerful freedom to act effectively and lovingly within it, rather than being caught in futile struggles. The journey toward empowerment through acceptance is ongoing and requires patience and mindfulness, because the impulse to resist is deeply ingrained. Old habits of denial and avoidance may rise repeatedly, tempting you to reject reality and return to familiar struggles. Yet each time you return to acceptance, you strengthen your capacity to live fully and freely, anchored in the present moment, rather than lost in the fantasies of what might have been or should. This persistent return to acceptance is itself a powerful practice that shapes your character and your destiny. It is important to understand that acceptance does not mean passivity or weakness. Rather, it is a dynamic and active force that allows you to engage with life's challenges from a place of strength and clarity. When you accept a situation, you are no longer wasting energy on futile resistance, but instead can focus on what is possible, on growth, learning and meaningful action. Empowerment grows naturally from this clarity and presence, and it changes how you experience life, shifting from struggle to flow, from fear to courage. Ultimately, empowerment through acceptance is a profound shift in consciousness that reveals the deep truth that you are never helpless or victimized by life's circumstances unless you choose to be. It is a path that leads you to discover the freedom that comes from owning your experience fully and responding to it with wisdom and grace. In this way, acceptance becomes the gateway to a life of true power and peace, a life where you move through every moment, not as a captive of circumstance, but as a conscious creator of your reality. And so this journey of acceptance and empowerment unfolds endlessly, inviting you to walk it with open eyes and an open heart.